Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center, New York, Kastuba Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Friday's study of the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Discussion.
It's the way to connect the soul with Bhagavan, with divinity.
Yeah.
It's the essence of the yoga system. And 18,000 verses, and we're cruising through. We're on Canto 6 out of 12 cantos. And I'm here live. We got Henry here. We got Catherine A's here. We got Bunky here. Steve Amari's here. And everyone's starting to pile in today for the chant camp retreat over Labor Day. Wish you were here, Kastuba.
Do you?
I do. I do wish you were here.
Okay.
I do. I'm sorry I couldn't get you the luxury suite.
Yeah.
I was like, you're gonna have to be
you could come up. We kind of got a
with the
place
rest
in the
of them.
garage underneath the car. It's a little
We have
oily
a
under there,
shelf
but
in
we
the
could
garage
squeeze you
for you,
there.
Kastuba. Well, you're a brahmachari. You can deal.
No. I'm happy and happy just to be connected with you here virtually, Raghunath.
Oh, good. And we have a Q&A day. You know, we have Bali and Dunya here too. And we might bring them on for some Q&A tomorrow.
Oh yeah,
well.
maybe we could bring Dunya on for some Q&A.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
How are you doing? Everything good?
Everything's great, Raghunath.
Great.
Went to the Bhakti Center last night, Thursday night kirtan. You know who popped in there totally unannounced?
Kumi.
No.
Kumi, yeah. Kumi was there.
I didn't see her.
Really? She was there.
I wish I would have seen her. Genevieve.
Don't wait, let me guess. Krishna Das.
Genevieve
Harrison.
Genevieve Harrison. Genevieve.
Harrison. I just told.
I said it 2 times before you said it. You just weren't listening to me. But I think it came in a little subconsciously.
I was like, it's a Krishna miracle. I just guessed it.
Yeah, it was nice.
Nice.
Great
Did
time.
she sing?
She did.
She's good. She's a good singer. All right.
Right. You're hyped up. You got people showing up. I can see you.
You can see when people get around, I get a little more energetic, don't I?
You do, for sure.
Mara just knits quicker.
It snaps you out of any kind of like, I don't know, subtle melancholy or anything like that. When you got the crowd, boom, you're on.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, you're going to be quite amazed because by the time you come to Super Soul for the Wisdom of the Sages retreat, which is happening Columbus Day weekend.
Yeah.
Boy, we are making progress on our stone wall. Me and Steve
I can't wait
You're going to be impressed, I think.
I can't wait to see that. I'm going to spend a little time with it.
Spend some time, sit with it. Each stone has a place it wants to go, but you got to listen to the stones.
I'm gonna try to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, and I tell you, it's a workout.
That's there too.
It's such a workout. I went to bed last night like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. You don't need CrossFit. You don't need a gym membership. You need to build stone walls, people.
And tear them down?
Huh?
How about tearing them down?
No, you build them up.
Okay. You are the guy that wrote the song Break Down the Wall.
Right. Those are more like philosophical
figurative walls.
Okay. We should actually build walls.
Okay.
Okay.
Careful with that, but
Yeah. Anyway, next
right.
week's our retreat. If you want to get out to the farm, next week's our retreat with Lori Pag. And then the Wisdom of the Sages retreat happening again, Columbus Day. You could sign up on wisdomofthesages.com or check my link tree for other stuff that's going on before the end of the season. The season ends. We don't do anything in the winter. We chill out. We go to India. Mary, you got any announcements for anybody?
Yeah, we have Bhakti Recovery Group meetings today at 12:30 and 1 o'clock Eastern time. And Josh Kane is offering his asana class for our Patreon members at 10:30 a.m.
Postural.
Josh.
Is that the
Cult.
postural asana
No.
class?
No, that's
Anu.
coming up next Sunday with Anu.
Josh Cult. Just call him Josh Cult from now on. Josh Cult has a whole Patreon cult following going on here. If you're in Patreon, check out his yoga class.
Josh Kane.
Josh Kane. We call him Josh Cult Kane. Josh Kane Cult.
Josh Cocaine. We just slow it down. Organize here. Slow it down.
From Gandiva Yoga. Isn't that a great name? Gandiva Yoga in Connecticut. But anyway, Patreon members, you want to support what we're doing, you like what we're doing, you get something out of what we're doing, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages and contribute. And we appreciate that. And if you're making a contribution, we want to thank you. We want to say your message today is double it. Just double it. Whatever you're doing,
stop. Okay, yeah, it was going so nice.
I got news for you, Kastuba. I've said double it, and some people are like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to double it.
That's nice.
Henry's here. He's going to double it, right, Henry?
What did you see?
Put you on the spot right now, Henry.
Okay, let's keep it moving, Raghunath. Let's move on to the nugget.
Here's the nugget today. Are you ready?
It's a little story.
It's a little cute little story.
Okay.
Although I've got my own nugget for you too, because we've been noticing something happening. All right, here's
not too many nuggets.
This is Kostuba's nugget.
Okay.
A barber once was cutting a man's hair, and the barber said, "I do not believe in the existence of God." The man asked, "Why not?" The barber replied, "There's so much misery and chaos in this world. If God existed, this mess would not exist." Right?
Oh,
A lot of people say that.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that. If there's a God, why is it so damn hellish out there?
Seems like a logical problem.
Yeah. The man said, "I do not believe in barbers." The barber asked, confused, "What do you mean?" The man replied to the barber, "Do you see those men outside with long hair?" The barber said, "Yes." The man said, "If barbers existed, people with long and messy hair would not exist." The barber said, "Well, we exist, but people do not come to us." The man concluded, said, "Exactly. God also exists, but people do not turn to God for guidance. That is why there are so many problems in this world."
Oh,
Kastuba. That's what people say. People always say, there's problems in the world. You're talking about God. Are you kidding? People do turn to God. That's why we have problems in this world. It caused more division. And part of them is true. Part of that statement is true. Part of that statement is actually, it's not God they're fighting for when they have these religious wars. It's a type of ego they're fighting for. It's a type of exclusivity. Is seeing that God is not in the heart of everyone. The very teaching of Sanatana Dharma or Vedic culture or yoga culture, whatever you want to call it, is that God is in everybody. God is even in your greatest enemy. There is no actual enemy. You're fabricating that. You're seeing some distinction, right? And so we connect to God by connecting through other beings. And instead of seeing my metric for my own spiritual life is me and God, my family and God, my culture and God, a better metric would be, how do I treat the people that God puts into my life? How am I going to treat them, right? How are you going to treat the person that doesn't like you or that isn't like you or doesn't care about you or dismisses you or comes at you with a lot of hate or anger? How are you going to treat them? Are you going to hate them back? Are you going to play the petty game?
Yeah.
Kastuba?
No, we don't want to go there.
So no, yeah. So God's out there, but you got to take shelter of God. Duh.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think a couple weeks ago we were talking about how certain well-known, like say popular scientific characters out there and, people that speak for science in the popular media.
Yeah.
They may be very well educated in their particular field, astrophysics or whatever it may be. But then they deny God, the existence of God, and they do it in the most simplistic, with the most simplistic arguments. Where a trained theologian would say, well, there's so many answers to what you just brought up. There's so many responses to that. We can go to we can go to a whole list of responses to that from different Christian thinkers. We can go into the Hindu texts, right, and see how they respond. And these aren't mere these aren't like simplistic responses. These are dense philosophical texts that are dealing with the question that you're bringing up. So it's kind of like if we approach science the way that they approach theology, they would call us simplistic, right? So when they take, so what you know about astrophysics or whatever it may be, that's great, that's your field, but it sounds like you're not qualified to deal with theology, because these simple questions like, oh, if there's suffering in this world, God must not exist. There's many answers to that question.
Sure.
Not saying that you have to believe them, but but the way that you're presenting it sounds like you haven't even engaged with them.
I like the example also is a simple example, but good example. It's like the sun is shining on everyone. Some people choose. Ever meet those people like it's February and somehow they're tan? They're just like figuring out the warm parts of the day, taking off their shirt, getting out there. It's like there's that's another Seinfeld episode, I think. By the way, the girl that was always tan.
I don't remember that one.
You don't remember that one?
No.
Anyway, it's one of these things. It's like people choose to take advantage of the sunlight, and some people just like, no, I'm never going to go in the sun. Even when the sun's out, I'm going to cover myself. So God loves everyone. God's giving information to everyone. Everyone's actually can be connected to God, and some people just choose, you know what? Yeah. No, not interested.
It's the barber is arguing that disturbances in this world are evidence that God doesn't exist. And in a sense, what the man is replying is all they're evidence of is that people aren't in line with God's message. Right? Like if through the different spiritual texts, they're saying, how to be tolerant, how to be kind, how to, how to love your neighbor, how to this and that, it's just that people aren't listening to that message. So if people were following that message, you wouldn't see the mess you're talking about. But it doesn't mean that God doesn't exist. It just means that we're not taking advantage of his message. Right? And I think that, that saying it like that is kind of simple. It's, kind of a simple presentation, but if we go to Bhagavatam, we're going to find a detailed and a rich explanation of how this all works. And the way that it works in the Bhagavatam is just that Vyasadeva he's just popping around the universe, Yeah. Let's hear from these people. Let's hear from, in one sense, Bhagavatam, it can speak to people. Its verses can speak to people from any culture. It can speak to people from cultures that are unfamiliar with the Vedic literature. But I think first it's speaking to people that are familiar with it. So it's like, do you know who Indra is? Oh, sure, I know who Indra is. Indra is like the king of the devas. He's like the king of the heavens. He's powerful and opulent. And okay, this is what happens when Indra makes a mistake. And let's zoom in on their conversation and see what's here's Indra speaking to a demon. Right, but the demon actually has a deeper spiritual understanding than he has. This is going to be an interesting conversation. Let's zoom in on this, right? Here's Prahlad. He's just a little boy. He was born in a dynasty of demonic universal rulers, but he had incredibly deep love for God and for every living being. Let's zoom in on his conversation with his father. This should be, let's see what, and in so many different ways, the same message is being illustrated, zooming all over the universe and seeing, Vyasadeva is saying, hey, if you haven't understood the deeper message of all of this, I'm going to show you that there are people that understand it, people that you respect, and we're going to go all over the place. We're going to go down to the hellish regions. Now we're going to see Yamaraj who's established as one of the 12 people in moving throughout the universe that really knows his stuff on these topics. And he's speaking to the Yamadutas now. He's speaking to these demonic people, and he's clarifying all of these things, clarifying how special that these religious / spiritual texts, they're full of all kinds of information. They're full of different stepping stones of progress that individuals can take. But they become truly valuable when you understand where they all ultimately lead. And where do they lead? They lead to divine love. Don't miss that.
Train.
Yeah.
Don't miss the divine love train.
Don't miss that message. Don't miss that message. That if you miss that message, you may have just kind of lost everything. It's like you're just spinning your wheels. Even you may be improving your material life, just the way the material world comes, you're going to lose it anyway. So we're going to hear this is the last 3 verses of this story we're hearing now today. The last 3 verses, 3 chapters on this story of a Jamil and the Yamadutas coming to take him, the Vishnu Duta saving him, and then the Yamadutas going back to Yamaraj and saying, what's going on? And Yamaraj wraps up his message, and now Sukadev Goswami is wrapping up his telling of this story to Maharaj Pariksit as he gets closer day by day to his death, his imminent death coming in a few days.
All right, exciting. We're going to wrap this up. Ready? Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam madirayat. Before we start in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttamasloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmadatam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My teachers are opening my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 3, Text 33. Oh, that's auspicious number, 6333. Numerology?
Numerology. We're going to part-time numerologer.
Part-time Mason? Okay.
This is a big verse right here. This is kind of the last big verse in this chapter.
Devotees who always lick the honey from the lotus feet of Lord Krishna do not care at all for material activities, which are performed under the 3 gunas, the 3 modes of material nature, and which bring only misery. Indeed. You got people who are like really stepping into their Krishna consciousness. They're realizing, material life, it actually doesn't satisfy myself. They can actually step away from the romance, from the promises of material happiness, and to actually see the material world what it is. It doesn't mean you're particularly sad. It means you're seeing things as they are. But what that does is it directs you to it doesn't mean you're even blissful. It means it directs you to where the actual bliss is. So the devotees who always lick the honey from the lotus feet of Lord Krishna do not care for material activities, which are performed under the 3 gunas and which bring only misery eventually. Indeed, devotees never give up the lotus feet of Krishna to return to material activities.
Okay.
You know what's interesting?
They're absorbed in bhakti. Yeah.
We are like yo-yos. Krishna bhaktas are like yo-yos. Because what happens is you could say, you know what? It's Krishna's too much. It's too fanatical. It's too much for me. I need a little less. You can run, but you can't hide. Once you've already tasted Krishna bhakti, you can't get away from it. You can't get away from Krishna is always with you. There's a great quote by Prabhupada. Please note carefully that you cannot leave Krishna consciousness. That's a fact. And even if you want to leave, Krishna will not leave you. This is also a fact.
Oh.
Interesting, huh? We were just discussing that with Henry last night. It's like you can
This
try
was your
to
nugget.
move away
This is the
from-
nugget
actually-
that you're talking about. Right?
Yeah. But I wanted to bring it in at an appropriate time.
Okay.
But
yeah.
me and Bunky and Henry were talking about this. It's like you want to get away from Krishna. You want to say, no, I know you've got an agenda, Krishna, but like check out my agenda. I'll make my agenda Krishna conscious. And you try to like move away, and you realize actually my agenda is actually very materially conscious. And then all of a sudden Krishna's be like, and then you know too much. You know too much at this point in your life. Those who've been practicing bhakti, you know too much. You know the shortcomings of the material world, and nothing is the same any longer. And then like a yo-yo, we get sucked back. You know what? I really just want Krishna. So as much as we try to run, we're on a leash, and Krishna just pulls us back. And even in our darkest hours, if we've once tasted the sweetness of Krishna, we can't forget Krishna, and Krishna never forgets us. Krishna's with us, and he's tapping us on the shoulder.
Tap.
Come on, don't forget. I'm right here. I'm watching you.
Okay.
I've got an embarrassing story. I can't tell it on the podcast, though. I'll tell you next time I see you.
All right.
Really humiliating. But
Can't be worse than the Calcutta Book Fair.
It's almost worse.
Can't be.
It's not. Anyway,
All right. Let's finish this verse
I've
up.
revealed too much about my personal life. Yeah. Okay.
Why don't you start from the beginning again?
Devotees who always lick the honey of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna do not care at all for material activities, which are performed under the three gunas of material nature and which bring only misery.
We talked about the honey being this nutritious, sweet message that you hear in Bhagavatam, right? Hearing about Krishna's name, hearing about his form, his qualities, his pastimes. That's this concentrated, sweet, glowing, right? Nourishing content. And so once you've become used to being absorbed in that context, that conversation, hearing that vibration, that's what he means here by licking the honey, right?
Sure. And you could really just tease this whole thing out and shine a light on what they're saying here. Any activity you do in the material world is under the gunas, right? So let's say me and Mara, we're going to go for a hike down the Grand Canyon, a gentle day hike or something, or a walk in the wood. It's like a sattvic activity, and it brings you a sattvic result. So it's hard to see the misery in that. As a matter of fact, you could chant, you could make it Shuddha Sattva, you could make it above the modes, you could be chanting while you're doing it, you could have enlightening conversation, you can bring that higher. And oftentimes people in the material mode of goodness can bring those material activities and make them sort of resonate at a high level. Passion's a little bit more obvious, right? I'm going to be a downhill skier. It's all about my time, how fast I get to. Once you throw passion into it, well, you get the excitement that comes with the mode of passion, but you also get the misery. If you screw up a hair, you could break a bone. You could kill yourself. You could, break a leg. And so you get the result of that passion. Tamasic things. What's a good tamasic thing we could do, Kastuba? How about just,
go to sleep there? I don't know.
Stage diving and drunk out of our minds or something like that. And end up, you get a tamasic result. So they all have some type of result in their activities. And you could see in these sattvic ones, you could also add bhakti, and then you could sort of like hover above those gunas. But eventually they'll all leave some type of emptiness unless they're connected with divinity.
Okay.
What to speak of not just emptiness, a type of material misery, actually. Okay.
Indeed.
I love that word. Indeed. Devotees never give up the lotus feet of Krishna to return to material activities. Others, however, who are addicted to Vedic rituals, because they have neglected the service of the Lord's lotus feet and are enchanted by lusty desires. That means lusty desires means just desires in general, not just sex. Sometimes perform acts of atonement. Nevertheless, being incompletely purified, they return to sinful activities again and again. So unless you get that higher attachment to Krishna, you'll always play this pendulum of I'll do some pious activity, and then I'll do some sinful activity, and then I'll atone and do some pious activity, and they go back and forth with this trying to enjoy the material world, even in a metaphysical way. That's what they're talking about. We see it in the right, and we see it in the West in a gross way. But in India, there's a lot of these metaphysical ways that you can get better karma using mantras, pujas, demigod worship, etc.
And so Sukadev is concluding here by saying, just understand that, yeah, there's a lot of Vedic literature that speaks about that kind of thing, but that's not what this is really all about.
Sure. It almost seems spiritual, doesn't it? Like,
well,
a sacred fire. He's got a robe on. It's pouring fire.
I'll read you something, Raghunath. And the idea is that these three, what's being illustrated here throughout the Bhagavatam, and we've talked about this many times, is that people that are trying to be progressive in terms of their spiritual life or even their material life, trying to align it with the divinity on one level or another, generally approach it in three progressive stages. Yeah. Karma, meaning this world is reality and I want to enjoy it through cultivating good karma. And I want to avoid suffering by avoiding bad karma. But I see this world as it's real and I'm here to enjoy it. Then there's the Jnanic perspective, taught more in the Upanishads, right? This world is an illusion. It's a place of suffering. It's a jail. It's a trap. I'm made of spirit. I want to escape it. And the Bhakti perspective is kind of the synthesis. This world is real in one sense. It's illusory in another sense. But what do I need to know about it? I need to know that intrinsically it's connected to the source, which is Sri Krishna. And I'm not here to enjoy it. I'm not here to escape it. Exactly. In the enlightened platform, I just see it. It's all as his, and everything works in harmony when it's centered around him. Everyone feels their natural internal bliss when we're centered around that root of all existence. So if there's something of this world, I see it in connection to that root. That's how I see. But the idea here is that within all the different spiritual traditions, you'll see these three. And I'll read you something, Raghunath, from a little book I got right here called Tibetan Buddhism, A Very Short Introduction.
Oh, thank you. You're going to read a little Tibetan Buddhism?
Now, when I say Buddhism to you, do you think more karma, jnana, or bhakti?
I think of jnana.
Yeah, naturally, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is going to address, hear this out. This is how he starts his book. He says, and this is written by Matthew T. Kapstein. He says, early one spring day in the mid-1970s, at the residence of a Tibetan Lama in the remote mountains of Nepal, I was invited to take tea and to converse with my learned host on the challenging topic of the nature of consciousness in Buddhist philosophy. A very Jnanic conversation here, right? What is consciousness? Yeah. Right?
What is consciousness? These guys need to go to a good kirtan and dance.
Okay, well, hold on.
Spin them around.
As we pondered a difficult passage.
That's a good takeaway today, because you have a spin a Buddhist.
Okay.
Spin a Buddhist.
As we pondered a difficult passage from an 8th century Indian text, asserting that the mind cannot be an object to itself. Right? Can the mind actually observe itself? You know, it's a total Jnanic breakdown, you know. As we pondered a difficult passage from an 8th century Indian text asserting that the mind cannot be an object to itself, we were abruptly interrupted by the Lama's servant. He whispered to the teacher that a local couple had arrived with urgent business. Could he please usher them in?
Lama's doing business.
Consent was granted, and the couple, peasants who had some herds that they tended in the pastures above the monastery, entered, pallid and visibly quaking with fear. The night before, a demon had entered their cattle shed, kicking up sparks and crackling, and almost provoked a stampede.
Bit of a
What
fox.
evil deed had they committed to become the objects of such demonic fury?
Hmm.
And now that the bane was upon them, how was it to be appeased? Prostrating themselves before the Lama, they begged for his protection and placed a small handful of cash on his table as an offering, together with a bowl brimming with fresh curds from their cows.
Hmm.
So the Lama and this professor, I assume, were speaking on the level of jnana, right? Can the mind observe itself? And if so, and if not, then what does that have to do with the nature of the self, and et cetera, or the nature of finding liberation? Then in come two Buddhists, right? Peasants, and they're coming completely from the karmic level. We've done something bad. We don't know what it is, but it's caused us bad karma in our life.
Mm.
What do we do to negate it? What ritual must we perform? Why did this happen? And what must we do to appease the gods? Right? How do we atone?
Mm.
Right? So now within the Buddhist paradigm here, we're hearing about not just jnana, we're hearing about karma, right? You with me?
Yeah.
You're just reading the chat board.
I'm just reading you.
Okay.
Reading
All right.
reading your lips.
Just give me a little verbal response is all I'm looking for. Right? So now he says, the Lama immediately sought to put their minds at ease. Seating them, he called for tea and biscuits to be served. After having them repeat in detail what had transpired, and by now I thought I recognized within the demonic attack an occurrence of the strange meteorological phenomenon sometimes called ball lightning. Are you familiar with ball lightning, Ragnar?
No. But we
Ball
did see a UFO
lightning
last
is
night.
a rare and unexplained phenomenon described as luminescent spherical objects that vary from pea-sized to several meters in diameter. Though usually associated with thunderstorms, the observed phenomenon is reported to last considerably longer than the split-second flash of a lightning bolt, and it is a phenomenon distinct from St. Elmo's fire.
What?
Some kind of unexplained thing where like a ball of sparks just appears out of nowhere.
Don't know about it.
Okay. All right. Well, now
St. Elmo's fire.
I don't know that either.
Right?
Well, St. Elmo's fire
Marrow, get on that, please.
is also called witch fire or witch's fire. It's a weather phenomenon in which luminous plasma is created by the corona discharge from a rod-like object such as a mast, spire, chimney, or animal horn in the atmospheric electric field.
Now that's clear.
And it was also a 1985 film.
It's a 1985 film.
Okay. All right. So back to our Lama. So he said, relax, everything's cool. The professor's saying this could have been ball lightning, he's thinking.
Right.
Studying. Okay, so then he sat them down and he took up his astrological almanac.
Okay.
The Lama. Studying it for some minutes, he rolled the divination dice that he always kept close at hand, and counted off numerological combinations on his rosary. Suddenly, Raghunat's perking up.
I light up.
Raghunat's perking up.
Divinational dice.
Okay.
That sounds interesting.
After what must have seemed an eternity to the terrified couple, he leaned forward and addressed them in the soothing tones of a parent comforting a frightened child. There are no indications that anything grave has occurred. Your livestock will be fine, he explained. Neither you nor your children will be afflicted with demon-born sickness or some ills. Only a passing disturbance of the elements due to minor faults of past karma is at stake.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he said, yeah, you've done something, it's not too serious, it's brought a little reaction.
Give a karmic answer.
Karmic answer. He's gonna go on to atonement.
Okay.
Right? To purify your karma and to pacify these troubles, you must undertake to practice each day the rite of sang.
Sang.
It's incense fumigation dedicated to the spirits of the environment.
Okay, worship the elements.
You're worshiping the gods of
Yeah.
the elements, right?
Gotcha.
And to recite Om Mani Padme Hum.
Ah, that's what they made me recite
Yeah.
back
The
in my days
mantra
from
of
Krishna.
Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, and you chanted 1,000 times. Do this, and your problems will vanish.
Ooh.
Above all, do not be afraid. Keep faith, adhere to compassion. You and those close to you will surely soon be free from all that has caused us distress. The Lama then gave them knotted protection cords, some consecrated pills, a sip of perfume water,
Ooh.
and touching each on the crown of the head, recited some prayers on their behalf. The couple, still nervous but braving hopeful expressions, took their leave. The Lama looked up, smiled gently, and said, "Where were we? Mind cannot see mind, wasn't it?" Okay, so he's switching from karma back to jnana.
Right.
Now, this is what this professor says, and this is why he shared this. He opened
Is
his
this a
book.
real story?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
And now he's going to explain why he opened up his book with that story, right?
Yeah.
So he writes, Tibetan Buddhism, as it is presented in the West, is often treated as an erudite spiritual discipline, a world of subtle philosophy and high-powered techniques of abstract meditation, dispensing a bounty of insight and compassion to all. So that's right. When we think of Buddhism, we think of jnana, right? A spiritual discipline that's got a subtle philosophy, meditations involved with it, right? He says, although this representation has its basis in the image of that Tibetan Buddhism has carefully crafted itself through the centuries, for Tibetans generally, including the social and religious elites, avoiding bad karma and demonic disturbances and undertaking meritorious rites and purifications were the fundamental objectives of religious life. Far from seeking to transcend the world in attainments of mystical contemplation, the day-to-day concerns that motivated the religious lives of most Tibetans, laymen and clergy alike, were the problems inherent in maintaining, not transcending, the order of the world by ensuring that harvests were plentiful, cattle productive, children sound, and enemies, whether demonic or human, impotent. Okay? So he says religious professionals accordingly were expected to minister to these similar needs, whatever they might have to say about recondite topics like the nature of the mind. Where the two ends of Tibetan religion, world maintenance and world transcendence, met was in the idea of the Lama, the spiritually accomplished teacher, often regarded as a bodhisattva who, in virtue of his superior compassion, learning, and ritual virtuosity, was both motivated and prepared to act in the service of the world at large. It goes without saying that not all who were titled Lama, in fact, fulfilled this lofty idea, though.
What is an actual meaning of a lama? Does it just mean a monk?
I don't know. A Buddhist monk.
He went to school.
That's a Buddhist monk of a certain level of accomplishment, I assume.
Yeah, Mara's got all her notes from private school in her phone. What does a lama mean?
This says a Tibetan Buddhist monk.
Okay, it's a monk.
Okay, and I'll just finish with this. He writes that there has been a marked discrepancy between descriptions of Tibetan Buddhism based primarily on doctrinal texts and those derived from anthropological studies of life in traditional Tibetan and Himalayan communities. So he's saying if you read how Buddhism is presented widely, like if you were going to go take a class on Buddhism, whether it be at a university or maybe like at some kind of learning annex or something like that,
Learning annex, yes.
You're probably going to get a very jnanic perspective, right? Understanding the nature of the mind, understanding, probably getting into different meditations and practices and talking about renunciation and its value and getting into the wisdom of that tradition, of detaching yourself from the things of this world and so on. But if you were to study it anthropologically, if you were to go to Tibet and look at Buddhism and how it plays in the lives of the masses of people and how it engages the clergy, he's saying it has a lot more to do with karma than jnana, right?
Okay. Where are you going with this? I'm curious.
Well, I started by saying that these three, karma, jnana, and bhakti, you're going to see them across the world religions and all the different spiritual traditions. Okay. And I think that's really important, because I've shared this before, is that commonly, if you were to ask a person of a particular religion or a particular tradition, who's closest to God, they're going to say the people that are in our tradition, right? They might even say only the people that are in our tradition.
Going this. But you're saying even within that tradition, karma, jnana, and bhakti exist. They may not be labeled as so. You can be a theologian, an academia of religion, but you might be missing bhakti. Or you might be a person who does good works in the world because you think, it's a good thing. People need us. Or you might be a transcendentalist, a bhakti yogi within another tradition who just wants deep connection, love of God, etc.
And the reason one reason I'm saying that that's important to recognize is because commonly you might ask someone from a particular tradition who's closest to God. And this goes back to our barber story. Like why is there, even though there's religion, why is there so much friction? Right? Mm-hmm. Barber's concluding God doesn't exist. The whole thing is a fraud. But another way to look at it is because we don't really understand each other, and we don't really understand the depth of these spiritual teachings. So commonly, if you go to, and it's not only within Christianity, but because so many of us are familiar with that world, if you go to, it wouldn't be uncommon to ask a Christian who's closest to God. They're going to say only Christians are. As a matter of fact, if you don't accept the blood of Jesus and he died for you on the cross, then you go to hell. You're very far removed from God. Whereas understanding these three, this karma, jnana, and bhakti, now these three are clearly articulated in the Vedic teachings, and Bhagavatam is where it gives the full clarification of their relative values. But if you ask someone let's say someone who's informed through Bhagavatam, then they're not going to judge based on what tradition you're in. They're going to judge by saying, how high have you scaled that ladder from karma to jnana to bhakti, to the purest bhakti, right? And whether you're in my tradition or not, if your motive is only love, well, then you're the closest to God. And even if you're in my tradition, but your motive is just to get along in this world in a pleasurable way on the karmic level, or just to escape the pains of this world and find peace on a jnanic level, then you're not as advanced as a person in another tradition who's in it only for love.
Sure. What's the prayer of St. Francis? Can you pull that up? That's a great bhakti prayer. But you see also, within Christianity, you see praying for things, praying for even something as good as health. We pray for health. It's not necessarily a bhakti prayer. Can I read the prayer of St. Francis, Kastuba?
Mr. Anti-Assisi, go ahead.
I'm not anti-Assisi.
I just
don't want to go to Assisi. He's trying to get me to go to Assisi.
I'm not against Assisi. I just don't ever want to go there.
Me and Kastuba have a weekly argument about going to Assisi. It's so stupid. Every week he's like, yeah, maybe we can even stop by Assisi. And
you're like, there's no beach there.
There isn't a beach there. There's not a beach there. Why do I want to go to Assisi in the summer? Well, there's saints that live there. Okay, let's find a saint that went to the beach.
Is that response on the karmic, the jnanic, or the bhakti level?
It's both. It's both. I like to cover all my yogas in one base.
I really don't see I'm missing the bhakti.
Listen to St. Francis of Assisi. This is he made up this prayer while walking towards the beach. Ready? Lord, make me an instrument.
Sure.
Lord, make me an instrument of your peace.
Okay.
Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy.
Thank you, Raghunath.
Like that?
Yeah.
Well, that's it.
Okay. Now, why did you read
Where
Prabhupada's
did he
commentary
write
to this
that?
verse?
All right.
It's a short one, but it's powerful.
Okay. All right. Hold on. Mara's getting it. Mara's pulling it up. Come on, Mara.
Now, this is Prabhupada just showing us, if you focus on Bhakti, if you focus on Bhagavad Dharma rather than the Dharma of the four Vedas or the Dharma even of the Upanishads exactly, but not Jnana Kanda, not Karma Kanda, but the Bhakti Kanda, the Bhagavad Dharma. Yeah, from the Bhagavatam. This is where we aim.
This is the purport here. Ready? A
Yeah.
devotee's duty is to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Right.
Okay.
One may sometimes chant with offenses and sometimes without offenses. But if one seriously adopts this process, he will achieve perfection, which cannot be achieved through Vedic ritualistic ceremonies of atonement.
Okay, this is important, right? He's saying the method is given to absorb yourself in the names of Krishna. How we do that offenselessly has a lot to do with how we live, how we show respect, cultivating the right sentiments, cultivating the right attitudes, cultivating the right behavior and understandings. We may be perfect at that. We may be imperfect at that. But if we chant and try to become offenseless, if you adopt, in other words, when he says, if you adopt it seriously, this process, you will achieve the perfection of divine love. You will not achieve the perfection of divine love through any amount of Vedic ritualistic ceremonies of atonement. It does not deliver that highest goal. It will not, it cannot, it won't.
You know, I got to say again, Kastubaji, that before you get a guru, you really got to read this stuff. You got to read this stuff and understand. The Bhagavatam will give you discernment into knowing what is real and what is not real as far as a teacher goes, or what you're even getting into. People go to India all the time, and you can get confused thinking, oh, this gem is spiritual, or this ritual is spiritual. It's not that they're. It's not.
It's that it can't
not
be
necessarily
connected
spiritual. It
Yeah.
can be connected to spirituality, but oftentimes those are basically just this. They're rituals of atonement or rituals to counteract malefic planets or some type of, and it all from the external. Like if you were just to show up there in India from a Christian background, it's like, it all looks the same. Nope, not the same whatsoever.
Not the same.
Completely different. You could have a black magic guy that looks like he's doing the same thing we're doing,
Okay.
right?
That's right.
They're doing the black magic. There's tamasic mantras, tamasic pujas, worshiping the ghosts, the spirits, the demons. Come on.
All right.
Okay. Got worked up there.
Persons who are attached.
Persons who are attached to Vedic ritualistic ceremonies, but do not believe in devotional service,
Bhakti.
who advise atonement, but do not appreciate the chanting of the Lord's holy name, fail to achieve the highest perfection.
They're getting stuck in Scranton, lost in the supermarket, however you want to call it. They're not going to achieve Krishna Prema.
That's the on the way to LA, but you stop in Scranton. Understandable. It's on the way. And you just stay in Scranton. No, you got to keep it going, people.
Raghunath showed that last week.
What?
You drove all the way to California.
Yeah, I did. And I kept going, though. I kept going. Devotees, therefore, being completely detached from material enjoyment. Now, that sounds like we have miserable existence. No.
Material enjoyment, not enjoyment. Material enjoyment. It's qualified.
Yeah. Some people think, well, I can't enjoy because I want to be spiritual. Wrong. You just need spiritual, right? You can't say, well, I eat nothing but junk food, so therefore I can't eat food anymore. No, stop eating junk food, right? You can have enjoyment, but you have spiritual enjoyment. You just refine everything you do. All right. Devotees, therefore, being completely detached from material enjoyment, never give up Krishna consciousness for Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. Those who are attached to the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies because of lusty desires are subjected to the tribulations of material existence again and again. I think it's a little hard to explain, Kastuba, to a regular American, you know what I mean, who's sort of unfamiliar with all these different rituals. But if you're Indian, you sort of get exactly where this. You know what's amazing? Prabhupada gave these purports to like a bunch of hippies,
And they got it.
and they got it, and to a bunch of Indians, and then he'll speak to hippies, and Indians will get it. It's
I know.
amazing because
He's like a Dr. Doolittle. He's like speaking in tongues.
to the animals.
The animals get it.
Yeah, it's amazing how across the board he reached so many people. Shout out, big shout out and respect to
Srila
Prabhupada.
Prabhupada.
You know, and also he really kept the main thing the main thing. These
He did.
purports really drill down the main thing of bhakti. And sometimes you might say, well, it seems like he doesn't know that. If you're into Vedic scholars, oh, it seems like he doesn't know that. And no, he knew it. He kept the main thing the main thing. He was smart about it. He kept the main thing the main thing. He didn't get detoured.
That's right. And we just got 2 more verses. Why don't you read the last sentence of this?
Those who are Maharaj Parikshit has compared their activities to Kunjara Socha, the bathing of an elephant. We know that. We
Yeah,
know
we
that
talked about
because
that.
we hang out with elephants, that they constantly take a bath and then they throw the dirt all over themselves.
You tone, and then you just keep on with the same activity. Back, you know, the
Got to change your activity. You want
largely
to change, you got to change your activity.
there's a lot of wisdom and beauty in Christianity, but a lot of how it's taught today.
Well, maybe.
Just hear me out.
What do you?
Yeah, I haven't even said
taking
what I'm going to say.
surveys
You're
of
already
Christians?
correcting me. I'm already correcting me. A lot of it is all about just finding salvation through atoning for your sin by accepting that Jesus died on the cross for your sins.
Without
That's
changing
the whole
activities, you're saying?
Huh?
Without changing your activities?
What did you do? There's no point in even changing your activities. Even even talk of that is frowned upon because it's not by your. There's no good that you could
It's
do.
not by
with
works
it.
alone.
It's not by works. It doesn't matter. Your works are just like
Oh, he
soiled.
says,
Faith
faith
cloth.
without works is dead. Christ said.
That's there. Yeah, but we only got a couple minutes. But my point is, that's an example of how the large, huge swaths of Christian believers
Yes. It is.
abandoned what Jesus ultimately taught, which was pure love, for the sake of karmic, ritualistic atonement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why don't we finish up? 2 verses left.
Kustuba on Christianity and St. Francis. After hearing the mouth of their master about the extraordinary glories of the Lord in his name, fame, and attributes, the Yamadutas were struck with wonder.
Whoa, like
Just
blew their
imagine them just like,
minds.
what?
Whoa, we didn't even
They're
know
like
about all that stuff.
peacefully looking.
Oh, they're scratching their heads.
As I'm wondering with their long nails and hair. God knows what they were wearing, the Yamadutas.
You'd imagine, like, I don't know, pelts of some sort.
Yeah, some pelt.
Pelts
Since
made
then-
from the skins of their victims.
Yeah, perhaps.
It could have been.
Since then, as soon as they see a devotee, they fear him and dare not look at him again.
They back off.
They back off. Okay. Next verse.
Last verse.
Is that the last verse? When the great sage Agastya, the son of Kumbha, was residing in the Malaya hills and worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I approached him and he explained to me this confidential story. Isn't this amazing? The Bhagavatam is telling this story, this whole story within a story, and explaining where he heard it from in the first place.
That's right.
I find this amazing.
Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purpose.
Like if they just wanted to tell the story, they didn't have to tell that part. But this is a real thing going on. They're telling, like, I heard this from this person.
I heard it before. Handing it down.
They just handed stuff
Thus
over.
end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 6th canto, 3rd chapter, Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Yamaraj Instructs His Messengers. We went through the John Mill story. Now we got
did it.
next week is the secret swan prayers.
Secret swan prayers.
Hung Seguya.
Mara, takeaways from today.
All right.
It's gonna get good.
Well, how do you treat the person who doesn't like you?
How do you treat them?
Oh, it's a question. It's just kind of like it's a
It's
takeaway
introspect-
question.
It's organic.
Yeah, think about that today.
Yeah, like that be your takeaway.
Don't miss the divine love train.
All aboard.
People all over the world. Join hands.
You can,
Love chant, love chant.
Kastuba.
About everyone's up on the peace train. Ooh, ah, ee, ah, ooh, yeah. Come on,
Yours is
the
more
peace
like the
train.
crazy train.
How about riding that train? Skip that one.
You can run, but you can't hide from Krishna.
Yeah, yeah. He's got you on a yo-yo leash.
Bhagavatam is the honey.
That's right. Nourishing,
honey.
delicious, glowing, sweet,
Get,
Sweet,
sweet.
creamy.
condensed.
Get a higher taste to get off the swinging pendulum.
Okay. They're kind of mixed metaphors, but we'll,
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
accept it.
Double entendre.
It all works in harmony when we're centered around Krishna.
What did you say? Double entendre? The word is double. You're dabbling in double entendres? Are you doubling in double?
Double dating, double slokas, double
entendres?
but the single most favorite. I'm wound up today.
Really wound up.
All right, go.
Don't get stuck in Scranton if LA is your destination.
That's
To be
right.
stuck inside of Scranton
With the
with
LA Blues again.
Refine your enjoyment.
Okay.
Prabhupada kept the main thing the main thing.
He did.
And
Come on, make it good, Miss Mara.
spin a Buddhist.
Spin a Buddhist. Everybody spin a Buddhist today. You see a Buddhist out there on the street, a Buddhist comes up and talks to you on the street. Hey,
In a nice way.
Buddhism. You grab him by the wrist cross. Hey, excuse me, Mr. Buddhist. Can you cross your wrist for a second? Grab
Say,
their
can
hand.
you do this?
Start spinning. Start spinning those Buddhists and say, you need to sing and dance more. I'm going to help you on your path. Let me help you spin. Spin your way right back to God. All right, everybody. Bunky, get over here. Give some love. And here is your number one spinner, Bunky.
Hey, monkey.
He's gonna spin. Oh, all the stars are out here at Super Soul Farm. What do we got here? Steve Amari, building walls. Catherine A. doing handstands.
Oh,
in the
Catherine
background.
A.
Pole plunging. We got Henry, Mara, and Kastuba. My three most boring, wonderful friends. Everything's common.
We're not, just
in your
because we're not
lives.
constantly like acting ridiculous
No,
and talking about
I'm getting older. I'm appreciating it. I'm appreciating it all.
how I feel so honored that you're appreciating my total boringness. Thank you, Raghunath.